okay? Is that it ready to go?
That's us, convener.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome everybody to today's Policy and Resources Committee. Do we have any apologies or substitutions? Oh, Sarah, you're on mute.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Apologies, convener. Yes, apologies from Councillors Cheap, Fairweather and Shepherd, with Councillors Boyd, Proctor and Devine substituting.
Thank you. Can I ask if we have any declarations of interest or statements of transparency? No, I don't see anything. Okay, on to item 3, which is the minute of the previous meeting. Is this minute approved?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 4 is appointments. We have a resignation from the Capital Project Monitoring Group. Councillor Cheap has been unable to attend frequently due to other commitments, so he has intimated his resignation. We're asked to fill this vacancy, and I'd like to nominate Councillor Meehan for this vacancy. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Braze?
Yes, I'll second that, convener.
Thank you very much. Is that agreed? Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the Scottish Government Parental Employment Support Fund. And this is a report from Ms. Alison Smith. Can I ask you if you'd like to introduce the report?
Thank you. Yes, so this is bringing forward information regarding this Scottish Government Parental Employment Support Fund. This is a fund which we've had funding for now for a few years. However, as you'll see from the report, we're being offered a significantly higher sum of money for 23-24. In terms of being able to draw that down, we have to prepare a delivery proposition plan, and the tight timescales around that mean at this time we don't have a complete plan, but we are have set out in the report the sort of broad themes and in terms of the criteria for that plan, and are working with partners to develop that, and therefore seeking approval to be able to submit that within the timescale and allow us to access the funding.
Thank you very much. It's obviously always welcome to get additional funding, but I do appreciate the difficulty you have with the tight timescales. Are there any questions on this report? Councillor Devine.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Yes, it is. It's good news to have so much money. I was just wondering, however, if you were confident that you can attract sufficient people from the various targeted groups to fill the places, as it is such a large amount of money.
Thank you. Actually, I have Fiona O'Connor who's leading on the programme on the call as well. Fiona, do you want to just say a little bit about where we are at the moment in terms of that development?
Yes, thank you. Currently, there are a number of ideas that we're scoping out. We don't foresee any issues with the volume, because there's a significant amount will be unemployed parents. There is also in-work parents that we're able to support through this funding, so we don't foresee any issues. We're working on process maps and referrals from both within Angus Council and all the contact services, and with our external partners through our local employability partnership. We don't envisage any issues meeting people and meeting the criteria that Scottish Government will put onto this funding.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, convener. And my question's in relation to part 4.3 of the report, starting on page 8 of the combined papers. For the support parents within the targeted family groupings, can I also just check, does this also include parents that may be over 25 and also parents who either are adoptive parents or fostering with the provision to go on to become adoptive parents?
Yes, happy to take that, and Fiona will also support me with the detail of that. So yes, in terms of foster and adoptive parents, they are included within the criteria of the fund. There are elements of this fund where we can support those over 25 in terms of some of the sort of wraparound support, but there are also other programmes in terms of employability work that the team carry out that are specifically sort of all age programmes. Fiona, do you want to just add a bit of detail to that as well?
Yes, thank you. We currently, so the parental fund is not age restrictive. It covers anybody from age 16 to pensionable age. We have developed bespoke pieces of work to support lone parents, young parents, etc. However, most of the work is with our over 25s. We have a long-term unemployment programme that we work across parental funding, no one left behind funding, and that specifically targets those that are over 25 and been unemployed for more than a year. So we try to work quite smart with the funding that comes in to make sure that we can offer broad programmes but cover everybody within that 16 to 67 age bracket.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands, but I do have a question myself. This is maybe one for Fiona as well. Does the programme offer support to people to access further or higher education to improve their job prospects? And also, is there any element of practical support in terms of childcare, etc.?
Yes to both. So yes, we do, as part of our ongoing employability provision, support anybody who's looking to move on to college. Part of the funding that we currently do also helps to upskill and reskill those in work. And childcare is being looked at. It's something that we offer as a sort of discretionary payment and support for those transitioning into work. But we are looking at potential supports through breakfast clubs, out of school provision, and how we can maybe bolster some of that to add value to existing childcare provision in Angus.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands. Do we have any comments? No comments. Okay, thank you. We're asked to note the increased financial allocation, note that a parental employment support delivery proposition plan is required, and this has to be done by the 30th of April. Note the content of paragraph 5.4, which details some of the current themes. Delegate authority to the Director of Vibrant Communities, and note that a copy of the delivery proposition plan will be shared with the P&R committee at a future date. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to item 6, which is the lighting partnership agreement extension. And this is a report from Director of Infrastructure. I ask Mr. Daly if he'd like to present the report.
Thank you, Convener. The report seeks approval to extend the existing street lighting partnership with TC Contracts, Dundee City Council and Perth and Kinross Council for a further 5 years to 31st of March 2028. As set out in the report, we have been in a partnership for street lighting since 2009. In 2020, we extended the lighting partnership to include our partner councils, Dundee City Council and Perth and Kinross Council, as well as TC Contracts. As laid out in the report, and I would refer you to Table 1, the performance in 21-22, year 2021-22, is positive in comparison with other councils in the Scottish average. And again, as set out in the report, from a financial perspective, our view is that it is delivering benefit. Therefore, the recommendation is that we do extend the current partnership.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions on this report? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Thanks, Graham. I just wondered, it is quite an operational question, but I just wondered what sort of support sits behind this post in terms of things like, if things aren't fixed within the recommended timescales, what are the triggers for escalation? Because I do get quite a few contacts from people saying lights aren't getting fixed after they've reported them in what they regard as a timely manner. So anything you can give me on that would be really helpful. I'm not quite sure of the operational detail behind that. Thanks.
Councillor Bell, I would say that it would be reporting as we would any complaint, query or request for information to the council, and I would direct your constituents, if they are dissatisfied with the response or feel it hasn't been resolved, to report the matter again using our website primarily to do so. Obviously, we would like to fix this quickly and avoid someone having to report it again, but I would advise that in those circumstances that it is reported again using our website.
Can I come back on that, convener? Do you mind?
Yeah.
I think that is a source of frustration that people are doing that and having to do it multiple times, and then it ends up in our inbox. So I mean, I don't know the kind of system that sits behind this, whereby things are recorded and there might be a flag put on the system to alert the manager to the fact that it hasn't been fixed after, say, 3 reports or fewer.
Through yourself, convener, just to reply to that, is that appreciate what you're saying, Councillor Bell, and it's something that if that's been your experience, it's something that I will follow up with the team, and to make sure that our systems are in place for recording and responding are as they should be.
Thank you, that's helpful. Councillor Braze.
Yes, thanks, convener. Yes, well, this partnership has been on the go and has been developing for a number of years now. Seems to work quite well, and of course there is this £60,000 financial saving for Angus Council, which is to be welcomed. But I do wonder that the lighting partnership manager is employed by Dundee City Council, but acts on behalf of all the partner councils. So this is where we get the saving. But I wondered, how much do we contribute to the cost that Dundee City Council bears through employing the lighting partnership manager?
The answer to that is it's a straight three-way split between the 3 councils. It's not something I was party to when that was agreed, but I assume it was when the partnership was first formed in terms of all the councils in 2020. But just to confirm, it is a direct three-way split, a straight three-way split between the councils.
You don't know offhand what our contribution is of in this three-way split?
What I would say is it covers, as well as the street lighting partnership manager, there's an apprentice lighting technician that is also split 3 ways between the councils in terms of the apprenticeship post for both. I have an indication, off the top of my head, but I think I'd rather give you an accurate figure, and it's something I'd be happy, Councillor Brace, to check that and provide that out with the meeting.
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wan.
Thank you, convener. Mike, a very quick question. For why are there no nighttime inspections? If it's sitting at 1.4, and you're mentioning that the kind of days for repairs are averaging to 3.1. I personally know of some lights that's been off for over a year. Maybe they haven't been reported right enough, but they certainly have never been fixed if they have been. And also we had that issue with the traffic control lights at the schools just the other week that we mentioned that some had been off for over a year there. So I can't understand why average fixing times are 3.1 days.
Okay, to answer the first question, which was about the nighttime inspection. Yeah. It's the case that for several years that we have not carried out any. I think what we was termed previously scouting is where officers or technicians would go out at night and just check for any faults. As far as I'm aware, there are very few. You could count on one hand, I've been told, the amount of the councils that still do that exercise. Instead, what every council almost does is that they rely on reports from the public when a light goes out. And really the reason for that was it wasn't considered a good use of staff time and the cost involved for doing these scouting exercises.
Thank you.
And sorry, the other question was about 3.1 days being low, given your own experience in the feedback. I think this maybe is similar to the points Councillor Bell was making, is that in terms of constituents contacting you about, and it sounds like what you observed yourself. As I said, that is our record that we have on file. All I could say is that I will, I've already made a point following Councillor Bell's comments to make double sure and speak with the team and make sure that we are recording properly, that when we are repairing, and that we are responding properly to any repeated report of a light being switched off.
Sure. Thank you very much, Graham. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, convener. Again, question for Graham. Obviously, we go into this with 3 other councils as to save money, and rightly so. But Tayside Contracts are also being asked to make considerable savings from their budgets and things. Is there likely to be any knock-on effect with the cost savings that they've made in relation to this partnership?
Not that I'm aware of, Councillor Gregg. From memory, there is 9 Tayside Contracts operatives involved in directly delivering the maintenance, installation, etc. Regarding our street lighting infrastructure. We are charged an hourly labour rate for the work that's undertaken by them. But to directly answer your questions, I'm not aware of anything saving Tayside Contracts are making that are directly associated with this.
Thank you. Graham, I agree with yourself. The stats in Table 1 are really good, and it's obvious that the partnership's working quite well for us in general. The one thing that I wondered about was the energy costs were higher than the comparable council with LED lighting, and I wondered if that meant that our lights were potentially on longer than they needed to be, or is there another reason for that?
Just to clarify, Councillor Whiteside, is this the percentage of street lights which are LED?
Yes, and then the energy consumption for Angus Council was higher.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I would say that first of all, in terms of the LEDs are more energy efficient, and it's a massive positive, and it's reducing our energy bill. That we have 98% of our stock converted to LED, and as you can see from Table 1, we're well ahead of the Scottish average there, and I think that's something to really we should be proud of. In terms of the average annual electricity consumption, I note it as we are just rounding it to the nearest number, 141 kilowatts hours, which is below quite significantly below the Scottish average of 202. So my observation is that we're actually performing well in terms of average annual electricity consumption. I do know that one of the councils that we're being compared against is lower than ourselves, so suggests there is room for improvement. And just to without trying to digress too much, but we have put other initiatives such as dimming the lights and trimming, what we call dimming and trimming, where you trim the times they come on and off. And I think it's something that gets, especially with the cost of electricity, we'll continue to try and focus as much as we can around the dimming and trimming, to use that term again.
Thanks for that. You're getting quite a lot of questions here, and it's probably because it's one of the things that we tend to get contacted about. I've got one more. Councillor Proctor.
Thanks very much, convener. Graham, I'm really reassured when you made the comment in answer to Councillor Bell's question about going around and following up on where lights and that have been reported and still not fixed. No pun intended, but can you throw any light on the school warning lights that have been on throughout Angus, for quite a few months now? And I believe there may have been a problem with the part, but what's the sort of situation? Has that been resolved?
Yep, to answer that, yeah, it has been a challenge in that some of our flashing 20-mile-an-hour signs outside of schools that are quite old and have been with us for several years developed a fault where they were continually on, and we were in a difficult position where for them to be enforceable, they have to be on, and it was either you leave them on all the time or you leave them off, and in effect they're not applicable during the school hours. We knew that they were being replaced shortly, so we took the view that we should keep them on all the time for safety purposes. The good news is that we have, and it was just very recently, we've just completed the replacement of all the stock. Slightly bad news is that yesterday I got feedback that in some of the cases there's a software issue, and that they aren't operating as they should and coming on at the wrong time. Just in case, your personal observation is that you've still seen problems. I would just reassure you that, again, it's disappointing, but the team are doing everything they can to resolve this, and I'm confident. Unfortunately, these snagging issues do happen, and the good thing with the new signs that have been put in and the software that's been put in is so that we've got better control about when we can switch them on and off. So it was regrettable, but there was reasons for why, and I would just highlight the fact we'll have acted on this and we'll have replaced them, and we do accept the essential need for them.
Thanks very much, Graham, for putting a great deal of light on that subject. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions or comments? I don't see anything. We are asked to agree to the extension of the partnership agreement. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, next item 7 on the agenda is the contributions policy for non-residential care services, and this is an update. I think we've got Mrs. McLennan here to introduce the report.
Thank you and good afternoon, everybody.
Sorry, convener. Sorry, Eunice. I put my hand up just to declare an interest. It is just a connection to the report, and I will stay in the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Speed.
Thanks. Sorry, Eunice. I'll let you continue.
Okay, I think Mrs. Buchanan's about to come in.
Thank you, Ms. McLennan. It was just to clarify with you, Councillor Speed, if you were declaring an interest, you'd need to leave. So just in terms of the minute, is it a statement of transparency that you're making?
Yeah, it was just declaring a connection, but I felt that it was insignificant given the recommendation, so was going to still stay in the meeting.
Would it be possible, please, just to clarify the nature of the connection? It's just in terms, I appreciate if you can't, that's fine. But to give a bit of information in terms of it, just again.
It was that I have family members who receive care at home.
That's ideal.
Given the recommendations and that this was more kind of strategic and adopting COSLA guidelines, that the connection wasn't significant enough to leave, but I can do if that would be easier.
It's really thanks for clarifying, Councillor Speed, what the nature of the connection is in terms of what you're saying. And it's really for yourself to determine if you wish to stay or not. So I'll just leave that with yourself.
Yeah, thanks. I'll remain to stay. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Speed.
Thanks, convener.
Thank you. So thank you for this opportunity. So this is our annual update to committee regarding our contribution policy for non-residential social care services. I'd like to just reword slightly the recommendation 1, if that's okay. So you'll see that within the 2 appendices now in the papers, they're both referenced as Appendix 1, but Appendix 1 in our paper is the EQIA, and I'm sure everybody's probably worked this out, and the second appendix is what we're referring to in the report as Appendix 2, but I just wanted to note that. And it's slightly wording of our first recommendation is to change it to agree the recommendation contained within this report and adapt the relevant parts of the COSLA national guidance on charges applying to social care support for people at home as per outlined in Appendix 2, because you'll see in Appendix 2 we have referenced at times when we are referring to the COSLA guidelines. We're also asking that this annual update of external links, we can do that automatically, and we will bring back any key changes in years going forward. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Have we got any questions? Councillor Bell.
Thank you, and thanks for the report, Eunice. I wondered if you could give us some detail, please, on determinations around if people are in financial difficulty or experiencing severe financial hardship. How is a determination made around their contributions when their circumstances change, and who makes the determination that they've moved from being able to afford something to those different levels of difficulty? Because obviously there's a big difference between financial difficulty and severe financial hardship. I just want to make sure there's a safety net for people in. Thanks.
So I'd hope to have Morgan Lowe, who is very much more operationally involved in this myself, but she's unfortunately off sick today with COVID. So I don't have huge levels of operational detail in regard to this. But what I can say to you is that as part of our assessment process, we ask people to evidence their financial situation in forms of bank statements, credit cards, etc. So we would look in quite a lot of detail to see what people's financial circumstances are. And then you'll see in section 5.5 of our appendix that we then look further, and it's about assessment to determine whether we do feel that people are in extreme financial hardship and aren't able to pay the contribution they need. So I would imagine that'll be signed off by a team manager. I don't have that level of detail, I can confirm that, but there will be a degree of scrutiny around, so we have a consistent approach around that. I'm confident about that bit.
Thank you for that. Do we have any further questions on the report or any comments? No. Okay, we're asked to. I'd ask you to approve the recommendations subject to the changes that Ms McLennan set out. Is the report agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, we're now asked to consider in terms of Standing Order 28.2 whether the public and press should be excluded during consideration of the following items so as to avoid the disclosure of information which is exempt in terms of Part 1 of Schedule 7A to the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Is that agreed?
Clarify with the next agenda item, so agenda item number 9, exactly why that is on a green paper and exempt from the public and press.
Mrs. Buchanan, would you like to explain that?
Could I defer to Mr. Graham Daly in terms of the detail of that, because he's probably better to explain in terms of that. I take it'll be because of the commercial nature of it. Is that right, Mr. Daly?
Yes, just to expand on that, we have not actually entered into the agreement with the partner that's proposed. We do have a negotiated position with them, and therefore this is what we will be discussing. I will be briefing you on, and I think that given the commercial sensitivity and the potential for that, that offer to change, it's regarded that this should be an exempt paper. In terms of the paragraph, and my colleague in legal would be better at maybe explaining that, but as it referred to, I think it's paragraph 9 of Part 1 of Schedule 7A to the 1973 Act, as it says at the top, in terms of just the specific reason for the exemption.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Gregg?
Partly. I asked because when I was reading the papers after the budget meeting last week on Thursday, I had a sense of deja vu and can clearly remember parts of this paper specifically being mentioned at that special council meeting, hence why I just wanted to clarify exactly why it was on a green paper when it's previously been partially referenced in public.
Thank you. Okay, would you like to...
Convener, sorry, just before we move on, can I with my colleagues that the live stream has been stopped.